Somewhere in the Persian Gulf tonight, there is a boat that is longer than 2 football fields. Cost around $600 million to build and belongs to a man who never talks about it. Her name is Azam. She is 180 meters long. And here is the strange part. If you tried to find her most nights of the year, you couldn't, because the world's biggest yachts are not really parked anywhere. They are nomads. They move with the sun. They cross entire oceans twice a year, and there are only a small handful of places on this planet that can actually hold them. So tonight, let me show you the secret map. Where do the world's richest people actually keep their yachts? Because the closer we get to the answer, the less it's about parking a boat, and the more it's about power. And the very last place on our list is a strip of concrete so exclusive that a single spot on it costs more than a mansion. Let me start with the secret that runs underneath this entire world, because once you see it, everything else makes sense. A superyacht is not like a car that sits in a garage. It follows the weather. In the summer, from roughly May to September, almost the entire fleet is in one place, the Mediterranean. And in the winter, when the Atlantic hurricane season ends in late November, that same fleet turns around and crosses the ocean to the Caribbean and the United States for the holidays. They do it in stages, refueling in Bermuda and in the Azores, a crossing that can take weeks. So when people ask where a billionaire keeps his yacht, the honest answer is, it depends what month you're asking. These boats chase warm water and beautiful coastlines all year long. Now let me take you to the harbors themselves, and we're going to build from the busy and the famous all the way up to the single most guarded address on the water. We begin in America, in a city that calls itself, without a hint of shyness, the yachting capital of the world. Fort Lauderdale, Florida. This is the winter home base for a huge slice of the fleet, and once you see it from above, you understand why. The city has around 300 miles of navigable canals threading between the houses, so many that it has earned the nickname the Venice of America. Here, a waterfront mansion doesn't have a driveway, it has a dock, and the yacht is parked in the backyard, sometimes a boat worth more than the house it sits behind. Every autumn, the city hosts the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show, the largest in-water boat show on Earth. The most recent editions have drawn over 1,000 exhibitors from more than 50 countries, displaying more than 1,300 boats, and in 2024 alone, the show featured around 194 superyachts, the most it had seen since 2020. To handle them, the brand-new Las Olas Marina reopened with 88 berths and room for yachts up to 96 meters. Fort Lauderdale is where the fleet spends its winter, gets seen, gets sold, and gets ready for the next crossing. But before a great yacht goes anywhere, it needs to be perfect. And that takes us to our second stop, an island in the western Mediterranean that most people picture as a beach holiday, Palma de Mallorca in Spain. Palma isn't famous for parties, it's famous for surgery. This is the refit and repair capital of the yachting world. At its heart is a facility called STP Shipyard Palma, one of the largest technical yards in the entire Mediterranean, and after a recent €8 million expansion, it can now haul out and work on yachts up to around 110 meters long. Over 1,200 yachts pass through STP every single year. What makes it special is something called the open yard model. Instead of being forced to use one company's workers, an owner can pick from more than 600 specialist contractors registered to work inside the yard. So when a $200 million yacht needs its hull repainted or its engines rebuilt, this quiet corner of Mallorca is very often where it goes to be reborn. Now let me raise the exclusivity, because our third harbor wasn't discovered. It was invented. In 1962, a young prince named the Aga Khan looked at a wild, empty stretch of coastline in the north of Sardinia and decided to build a paradise for the rich from nothing. He called it the Costa Smeralda, the Emerald Coast, and at its center he created the town and marina of Porto Cervo. Today, Marina de Porto Cervo offers around 700 berths, including roughly 100 spots built specifically for megayachts, with everything from fuel and power on every berth to 24-hour security and a concierge who can arrange a helicopter transfer before you've finished your espresso. In 1967, the Aga Khan also founded the yacht club Costa Smeralda, which to this day is one of the most exclusive sailing clubs on the planet. hosting legendary regattas where $200 million sailing yachts race for nothing more than pride and a silver cup. Porto Cervo is proof of something important about this world. For the truly rich, the perfect harbour isn't found. It's commissioned. Our fourth stop is the new money on the map, and it is rising fast out of the desert. Dubai. For years, the Gulf had the wealth, but not the world-class marinas to match. That is changing at extraordinary speed. Dubai Harbour now offers a staggering 1,100 berths and can take megayachts up to 160 meters, that's 525 feet, of boat. And the newly developed Richest Yachts and Marina, built on the historic Port Richest, adds over 600 more berths, with deep water access designed to remove the draft limits that hold back so many other harbours. The stated ambition is blunt. Dubai wants to be spoken about in the same breath as Monaco. It wants to be the Monaco of the Middle East. And given how fast the region is building, that is no longer a fantasy. Which brings us to the Old World, and to the two harbours on the French Riviera that sit at the very top of this pyramid. The first is in Antibes, and its official name is Port Vauban, the largest marina in all of Europe, with more than 1,500 berths. But nobody in this world calls it by its official name. They call it the Quai des Milliardaires. The Billionaires Quay. It is a single breakwater that stretches 650 meters out into the sea, and it holds just 19 berths. But what berths they are! Most are sized for yachts up to 90 meters, and then, at the very end, there are two monsters. One berth built for a yacht up to 150 meters, and one final berth built to take a vessel up to 165 meters long. That is a parking space for a boat longer than a 50-story building is tall. The mooring system was custom engineered to remove all the usual chains and buoys, purely for the security and the clean look of the world's most valuable yachts. This is where names like Gates and the Gulf Royals tie up. On any given summer day, the combined value of the boats tied to this one breakwater can run into the billions. 19 spaces and a waiting list of the most powerful people alive. And now, number 1. The most concentrated square mile of wealth on the surface of the earth, Monaco and its harbour, Port Hercule. Monaco is barely 2 square kilometers. That is smaller than Central Park in New York. You could walk across the entire country in under an hour, and yet, crammed into that tiny space, Port Hercule is the beating heart of the entire super yacht universe. It is widely described as the most expensive marina in the world, and the numbers explain why. For a regular yacht in the 100-meter class, a monthly berth in high season can run over 40,000 euros. And to keep the very largest yacht it can hold, in the 210-meter range, tied up full-time, the price can reach around 83,000 euros a month. But that is a calm week in Monaco. Twice a year, this harbour transforms into the most expensive water on Earth. In September, Port Hercule hosts the Monaco Yacht Show, the premier super yacht event on the planet, where 100 of the newest mega yachts are packed in bow to stern for sale. And on Grand Prix weekend in May, when the Formula One cars scream past the harbour's edge, a berth with a view of the track can start around 150,000 euros and climb past $500,000 for a single weekend. In Monaco, they say it can be harder to secure a berth than to buy an apartment. And in a place with some of the most expensive real estate on Earth, that tells you everything. So we have our map. Fort Lauderdale for the winter, Palma to be repaired, Porto Cervo for the invented paradise, Dubai for the new money, the Billionaires Quay for the untouchable few, and Monaco for the crown. But I promised you a twist, and here it is. For the very biggest boats of all, the answer to where they park is often nowhere you can see. Remember Azam, the 180-meter giant we started with? When she is home, she doesn't sit in a public marina at all. She rests at Khalifa Port in Abu Dhabi, effectively a private base. And on a warm summer night off Saint-Tropez or Capri, the most spectacular yachts in the world often aren't tied to any dock. They are anchored a few hundred meters offshore, glowing in the dark, deliberately out of reach. Because at the very top, a berth is a place to be admired, but the open water is the real luxury. The dock is where you're seen. The sea is where you're free. And maybe that's the real answer to our question. The map of where the richest people keep their yachts isn't really a map of harbours at all. It's a map of where they feel comfortable being watched and where they'd rather disappear. From the canals of Fort Lauderdale to that one impossible berth in Monaco, every stop on this tour is someone deciding how visible their fortune should be. So I'll leave you with this. Of all the places we've been tonight, if that boat were yours, where would you keep her? The safety of the Billionaires Quay or a quiet anchorage where no one could ever find you? Tell me down below. And if you enjoyed this tour through the harbors of the ultra-rich, stay with me, because next time we're going aboard the single largest private yacht ever built.